In the village of Zango, there was a woman named Salima. She was as poor as the dusty ground beneath her feet. Her clothes were like old racks full of holes and tears, barely covering her body. Her heart, it was more of a shell than a home. The roof leaked whenever the sky cried, and the cold wind blew through the torn windows as if mocking her. Salah had no bed. She slept on the hard, bare floor, curling up like a hungry cat to keep warm every night. She prayed for a better life. But the mornings always greeted her with the same struggle. She tried everything to survive. She fetched water for people, washed their clothes, and even worked on their farms. But no matter how hard she worked, her hands always came back empty. It was as if the world had turned it back on her. Her agates, the women she grew up with, were all married, living comfortably with their families. They wore fine clothes, their children laughing and playing around them. But Salah, she had no husband, no child, no one to call her own. The villagers whispered behind her back. She's cursed. They said, born with bad luck. Even the men kept their distance, fearing her. Misfortune would rub off on them. Salima's life was a tale of sorrow. She walked through the village like a shadow, unnoticed, unloved, and unwanted. Yet, despite everything, she carried on, hoping that one day the sun would shine brighter on her life. But that day had not come. Not yet. One hot afternoon, Salma carried her bibule of tattered clothes to the river. The sun beat down fiercely, and the river sparkled like a pot of melted silver. She knelt by the water, scrubbing her rags with hands as rough as the village roads. The sound of the rushing water was the only comfort she had. As Salima washed, she heard the soft rustle of footsteps behind her. She turned quickly, her heart skipping like a frightened bird. There, standing tall and proud, was a woman dressed in clothes so fine they seemed to belong to a queen. Her skin glowed, her jewelry sparkled, and her smile was as sharp as a knife. Good day, the woman said, her voice smooth like honey. Salima blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. Good day, ma, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman stepped closer. My name is Kia. I've been watching you, Salah. I know your struggles. Salma's eyes widened. How did this stranger know her name? Kemi smiled as if reading her thoughts. I have a business for you. It's simple and will change your life. Salima stared, her mind spinning. What kind of business? KY reached into her bag and pulled out a bundle of crisp notes. You will collect used panties from the village. Bring as many as you can for every load. I will pay you handsomely. Salma's jaw dropped. Panties? She asked, confusion thick in her voice. Yes, Kimi said firmly. Don't ask questions. Just do as I say. And you'll never be poor again. With that, she handed Salah the money and turned to leave. Remember, she said, I'll be waiting. Salah said, sat by the river, clutching the money, her mind clouded with questions. What kind of business was this? Why panties she didn't understand? But the weight of the money in her hand was real, and for the first time in her life, hope stirred in her chest. She packed her clothes and headed home, her heart beating like a talking drum. What would she do next the next morning? Salah woke up with a plan. She knew the villagers might grow suspicious if she asked for only panties, so she decided to make her trade seem ordinary with the money Kimi had given her. Salima went to the market and bought colorful buckets and bowls, big and small, each one shining under the morning sun. When she returned to the village, she knocked on the first door. An old woman opened her eyes, narrowing at Salima. Good morning, Mama. Salima greeted, holding up a bright blue bucket. I'm exchanging these for any old clothes, shoes, or even panties you don't need. The old woman grunted. Old clothes, shoes, panties. She shook her head. What kind of business is that? It's for a new venture, Salima, said her voice steady. If you have anything you're not using, I'll trade you for this fine bucket. The old woman's eyes lit up at the sight of the bucket. Without hesitation, she went inside and returned with a pile of old clothes and shoes, topped with a few worn-out panties. Salah smiled. Thank you, Mama. Here's your bucket. At each house, it was the same. The villagers eagerly handed over their useless items for Salah's shiny bowls and buckets. By the end of the day, her sack was full bulging with clothes, shoes, and most importantly, panties. That night, Salah sat in her hut sorting through her collection. She carefully separated the panties and placed them in a special sack. The other clothes and shoes, she took them outside and burned them in a hidden spot near the river. The flames crackled, eating up the evidence, while Salah watched her face glowing in the firelight. The next day, she delivered the sack of panties to Kew by the river. You've done well. Kay said, her voice smooth as silk. She handed Salima a thick bundle of money. Salima's heart rised as she clutched the payment. Thank you, she whispered, feeling hope rise in her chest. Kami smiled, her eyes sharp. Keep working, Salah. Your life is about to change. And so Salima's trade continued each day, bringing her closer to a life she never thought possible, while the villagers remained clueless about the dark secret hidden beneath her newfound success. Before long, the news of Salima's trade spread through Zan like wildfire. Her colorful buckets and shiny bowls became the talk of the village, from the eldest grandmothers to the youngest brides. Everyone was eager to exchange their old clothes, shoes, and most of all, panties for Salma's fine goods. Have you seen Salma's new bowls? One woman asked her neighbor. Yes. I traded my husband's old shirts yesterday and got one. It's beautiful, the neighbor replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Whenever Salah arrived in the village with her buckets, a crowd would gather. Instantly, women pushed and shoved, each trying to hand over their old items. First, Salah never lacked customers, and her sacks were always full. By the end of the day, with case payments coming in regularly, Salima's life began to change. She repaired her leaky edge, replacing the tall roof with sturdy palm leaves. Her windows were covered, keeping the cold winds out at night. She even bought new clothes, bright and colorful, like the women she once envied for the first time. Salima could eat well, no more begging or struggling. Her days of hunger were over. The villagers noticed her transformation and began to talk. Look at Salah, they whispered. She's no longer the poor wretch we knew. Maybe our business is truly blessed. Another added, but while her days were filled with laughter and trade, her nights held a darker secret. When the village slept, Salah would quietly gather her sacks of sorted panties like a shadow. She slipped through the narrow paths, heading toward the river under the moonlight. She would meet Kami, who always waited with her strange, knowing smile. They exchanged no more than a few words, but each time Kami would take the sack of panties and hand Salah her payment, no one in the village knew of these nightly meetings. To them, Salima's success was a simple tale of hard work. But in the docks by the river, something strange and unspoken was happening, and soon it would catch the attention of a watchful eye. Salima's trade grew bigger than anyone in Zango could have imagined. She didn't stop at her village. Soon she started visiting neighboring villages, her buckets and bowls gleaming like the morning sun everywhere she went. Villagers eagerly gathered their old clothes, shoes, and panties, waiting for her. Her next visit. Salima is coming tomorrow. They say, the excitement bubbling like a pot of soup. Everyone wanted a piece of her trade back in Zango. Her life was a marvel. Her once broken down heart now stood strong and proud. Her clothes were fresh and her meals were satisfying. But while most villagers celebrated her success, one person's mind was rested